Hello from Rhode Island.
Norm, that's their first slide.
Okay, so you're not going to no. Oh. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's delightful to see our congregation growing again. Actually, suddenly see the positive side of growth here. So it's my privilege to welcome you today. Whoever you are, whatever your age, race, faith, philosophy, whatever your orientation or your background, you're welcome in this congregation. We'll start with the child slide, and Arran has a child slide reading for our minister, right?
There's also this, no? This slide.
Oh, yeah, we'll do that before we. So before we start, we do want to acknowledge that we want to acknowledge that for thousands of years, Indigenous people have occupied the shoreline of eastern Vancouver Island in a place referred to as the Land of Plenty. We acknowledge that we meet on the traditional territory on the Petlatch, Ikasan, and Comox First Nations. Okay. It's hard to turn there.
So our opening words today are from Lewis Carroll. Alice laughed. There is no use trying, she said. One cannot believe impossible things. I dare say you haven't had much practice, said the Queen. When I was younger, I did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I even believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Before we go into the story, I think George wanted to do an announcement about the canvas.
Oh, wow. That's early in the agenda. So
A month ago, Arran's presentation left me with a question. I don't know whether it did you or not, but the question was, are we here for each other or are we just here? Simple question. But I gotta say, it's been rumbling around in here for the last month. I'd like to say, well, of course, I'm here for you. But that wouldn't be entirely truthful. I don't know about you, but there are times when I find myself after the fact, after I've had an interaction with somebody here or someone outside of this community thinking, you know, I probably could have said something or done something differently to make that interaction better. And sometimes it's even, I could have just done or said something. Right? Can you relate to that? It's hard being there, totally present for somebody. For me, anyway, I don't know about for you, it doesn't come naturally. It takes some qualities that I think we all have. It takes the ability to give undivided attention. It takes some personal awareness and self-assurance. It takes some compassion. It takes some vulnerability. And those things aren't always there for me when the situation calls for them. Sometimes they get tripped up over my own uncertainty about what to do, or fear about what the reaction will be. Just plain distraction, being too wrapped up in my own issues to be able to see what's going on with someone else. And so there is always, even at my relatively advanced age, more to learn and room to grow. And that's what's, for me, important about our community here, because it gives me opportunities to do that. Services, the men's groups, the check-ins at meetings, conversations before and after, all give me time and sometimes the challenge to step up and practice being there for somebody in a relatively safe environment, much safer here, certainly, than it sometimes feels in the world. So I get a chance to hone my skills so that I can be more present out there as well. So it's a gift to me. And it's the fellowship that provides the context and the support that allows those opportunities to happen. So every year, about this time, we ask you if you could, in return, support the fellowship with whatever financial and volunteer resources you're willing and able to commit. So next week, you'll be receiving the Canvas package. This year, we're calling it Beginning Again, because that's kind of the way it feels. We've been in a 2-year plus dark period with COVID. We've all, I think, been changed by that a bit. Certainly the world around us has been changed. We have a minister, we have new faces out there. And we may even have discovered that we would like to have different things from the fellowship than we have had, or at least we've been getting in the past. And we'll be exploring that on December 3rd. But the bottom line is we need your support to be able to begin again. And so thank you for all your past donations and volunteer effort. And thank you in advance for whatever you're able to commit to in the coming year so that we can begin again. Thanks.
Thank you, George. And hello, everybody. Unfortunately, I'm not in Comox with you today as I had planned because me and my family are all sick this weekend. So fortunately, I can join you through Zoom. And the first thing I want to share with you is the story for today. So let me...
I'll stop sharing, Aaron.
Yeah, I've got to share now.
Okay.
So I want to tell you a story about this square. Now this square was kind of the perfect square. It had some nice crisp edges, very sharp corners. And this square was very happy about that. And it lived its life being this perfect square for quite some time. And then some kids found it at the bottom of the toy box. And the next thing it knew, it was cut up and it had holes punched all over it. And so it turned itself into a fountain.
And we're not seeing that for some reason.
You're not seeing
it on my screen, but I'm not seeing it on the big screen.
Did you stop?
Oh, I think because I have to stop my presentation. Okay. I gotta be in Zoom. Okay, there. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
The first square. I'll go back on the.
There's the first one. So this is the square, and then this is the being happy about being the perfect square. And then it got cut up and holes punched in it, and then it turned itself into a fountain. And then on Tuesday, it got ripped into pieces. And so it turned itself into a garden. On Wednesday, it got ripped into shreds. And so it turned itself into a park. Then on Thursday, the kids were back again and it was shattered into many pieces. And so it turned itself into a bridge. On Friday, it got cut into ribbons. And then it turned itself into a river. On Saturday, it got ripped right in half and it turned itself into a mountain. And then on Sunday, it waited. And none of the kids came. And it was sad. So it turned itself into a window that opened out, that looked on a mountain, that gave birth to a river, that was crossed by a bridge, that led to a park, that was home to a garden, that had at its center a fountain, that bubbled and giggled and clapped.
Can you hear?
Nothing
to hear.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
The recap.
Very fascinating service. Sorry, it's a very fascinating service. So this is the part of our gathering today that we share our stories and share our joys, our concerns, and we build a community out of caring for each other and hearing of our lives and our struggles. So I'll put one stone in. I'll just say that.
I know quick grandkids and now they're gone. So I am really grieving my mom. I didn't want to do it in front of them because one of the things I'm having a hard time with is joy and holidays and Christmas. And I'm finding it so hard, but I don't want them to know. So thanks, guys.
Song?
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed on every need. We can feed on every need. We can feed on every need. Start with love and it's a seed. We can feed on every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, the world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
I just found out you can't look at the chat while this is playing.
So many years ago, I came across a postcard. It was a photo of a plain brick wall, painted white, on which someone had spray painted, "Be realistic, demand the impossible." I immediately picked up the card, and for years I carried it around with me. It came to multiple countries and was stuck on my bedroom wall in too many homes to count. This piece of graffiti resonated with me so deeply, I couldn't let it go. I've often seen myself as a practical idealist, and the statement just made so much sense to me. Be realistic, demand the impossible. I want you to think for a moment of the things that you have been told were impossible, or maybe you even believed were impossible, but turned out not to be. When I was a kid, I grew up in a small mining town in Scotland. The range of what was possible, what was allowed for someone like me was very narrow. Choice of career, of house, of who you might marry, of what you did in a Saturday afternoon, and almost every aspect of life was limited, prescribed even. But there were two main gifts that got me from there to here, to a life that would have been unimaginable to my child self in almost every aspect. The first started with a library card. In the library, I read stories of other worlds. They were so different from my life. Stories of parents who made lunches and tucked you into bed with kindness in a story seemed as fantastical as the ones with talking animals and adventurous stuffies. And yet these stories, these fantasies, these dreams gave me a sense of a world outside of the one I lived in. It gave me a small, quiet, oh so fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, one day I could have a different life. And this unspoken hope saved me. When I was 16 years old, my life felt unbearable. And when I couldn't take it anymore, rather than the more tragic options I considered, this hope had me hastily pack a bag and jump on a train to Glasgow in search of something different. The second gift was realizing I was queer, at least after the initial confusion about what that meant. The standard script of what my life should be, the marriage, the council house, the kids, was thrown out of the window. It was like the curtain being pulled back in The Wizard of Oz. I realized that the way things should be was, in fact, more or less guidelines than rules per se. If you pushed against the impossible a little, I often found it was not as solid or impenetrable as I had been led to believe. It was not so impossible after all. And I discovered this didn't just apply to me, slipping through the cracks and making it up as I went along. It also applied to our culture. What we see as normal and desirable and regular is not as static as it seems. What is possible is a lot more fluid than some would like us to believe. When I came out as queer in the 1990s, I guess I should specify now, the idea of same-sex marriage seemed impossible, as did queer kids adopting kids or the government funding transgender surgeries. They seemed impossible until they didn't, and then they weren't. These changes have improved life for queer and trans communities as well as straight and cis folks. And we continue to reimagine and expand what true inclusivity and true belonging for queer and trans folks means in our culture and our families and our communities. And similarly, they have undoubtedly have been significant improvements for people of color in North America and in Scotland in my lifetime. How I understand racism, how I see my privilege, and my own complicity in oppressive systems, what I'm called to do in dismantling white supremacy culture and other oppressions has continuously evolved. It has changed way beyond what I could have imagined a decade ago, as it did in the decade before that and the decade before that, which really is as it should be. I couldn't have had the understanding I have now then. What I know now is built on what I knew then. The steps that past knowledge called me to take led to experiences and insights that opened up new worlds of awareness to what seems possible now. At this moment, I believe we are only just beginning to imagine what a truly anti-racist Canada, BC, Vancouver Island, or Unitarian Universalism might look like. There are many things in the fuzzy space between seemingly possible or impossible. Today, they might include respecting Indigenous sovereignty, defunding police, and investing in communities. Some are starting to consider creative options to end poverty, such as universal basic income, as well as exploring imaginative solutions to food security and housing for all. We're hearing stories of places that are figuring out how to enact some of these ideas, though there are many more who would tell us stories of their impossibility. These changes aren't superficial or easy. They involve deep culture change. They involve not knowing exactly what will happen. They involve trusting the kinds of people mainstream culture doesn't typically trust. But if COVID has taught us anything, it is that we can do imaginative culture change quickly to keep each other safe when we want to. So when you hear suggestions that address social or environmental issues, especially when those suggestions come from those most impacted by the issue, and find yourself thinking, that's impossible, or even more so if you think, that sounds great, but it wouldn't work, I encourage you to deeply question that. It might be hard to imagine. It might be disruptive. It might involve losing something. That may be something tangible, or it may be ideas of how you've seen yourself or the world. You might feel like you're being pushed around by the waves of social change. And I invite you to reflect on all the impossibles you have seen become possible in your lifetime and the unexpected flourishing they have brought. And I hope we inspire each other to keep our hearts open and begin to wonder, what if?
Keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. You've got to keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. I'm gonna keep your heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open. Though the waves want to push you around, though the waves want to push me around, I'm gonna keep your heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open until my faith brings me back to solid ground. Until my faith brings me back to solid ground. I'm gonna keep your heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open. Though the waves want to push around, though the waves want to push me around, I'm gonna keep your heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open till my faith brings me back to solid ground, till my faith brings me back to solid ground.
So, as George pointed out, we pass around our collection plate. Half, is it half comes to the county answer? Half the unidentified contributions will go to each pair this quarter, right?
As well as anything in an envelope that we actually designate for transforming our world and overseas.
Next.
John Lennon once said, "A dream you dream alone is only a dream. A dream you dream together is reality." We are a community that dreams together. We shape our realities by holding each other in love, responding to each other with compassion, supporting each other's growth. We practice living our values, and we, together, imagine ways to live into the world we dream of. May it be so.
We come to the extinguishing of the chalice, and I would just like to say that I think I can speak for all and share our appreciation about a service beautifully put together by our shared minister. Make me very happy with the decisions that were made and look forward to the year ahead with him. So for now, we extinguish the chalice until we meet again. We cherish all the time that we have shared together and look forward to our coming together again.
When is that going to be? Curious.
That's it.
Third Sunday, or?
Yeah.
On the 20th, we'll be celebrating our 60th anniversary.
And there's a potluck.
So we're going to potluck today.
No.
Made the salad.
I made cookies. Is it from your garden?
So
Lots of cookies.
it is our habit to stand and sing the closing song.
Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
Certainly the other part, the end of what we used to sing, lost